Bambro back with some ultimate Admiral Dreadnoughts. Our France campaign that we began in January 1890. And we've made it 3 years into January 1893, and we successfully prosecuted our first war, which came to a conclusion in the last episode. A little bit surprisingly, our government made peace with Britain despite our protestations to the contrary. We wanted to continue. And that happens. So, coming out of that war with Britain, we picked up a couple of new ports. Picked up Gibraltar. I think that's going to be pretty handy. And we picked up Valletta, which is Malta, and Limassol in Cyprus. So we've got a little bit of presence in the East Med now. I like the idea of Gibraltar now being French because of the 5 major powers at the current state of the campaign in the campaign map. France is the only power that has a core national, I'm not quite sure how to articulate this. Let's say homeland defense, national security interest, both up here in the Atlantic North Sea side of Europe and also in the Mediterranean. Every other power, their home ports are in one area or the other, and that includes Britain and certainly Germany, Italy, etc. Right? There's no Italian ports up here. There's no German ports down in the Med. There's a few English ports, but essentially there were. There were until we took them at the end of the last war. France is the only one that has kind of core ports, big ports, capital ship ports on both sides. So France's navy is kind of split between the two major theaters, if you will, more than the other 4 powers are. So I find Gibraltar kind of a neat port for France in that it can more quickly swing ships in one direction or the other. Right? I mean, ships from Marseille or Toulon can get up to the North Atlantic. Ships from Brest or La Rochelle can get over to the Med, sure. But not in one turn, right? Not in 1 month. Gibraltar can spit out a task force of that's not big enough for capital ships, but it can spit out a task force of cruisers to either the North Atlantic or into the Western Med immediately. So that's a nice port to have. I believe, that's actually a good question. I would assume it is probably counted as a West Mediterranean port. But I'm not 100% sure about that. I won't know until I don't think I'll actually be able to tell until I home port a ship there, station a ship there. I bet it's a West Med port, though. Okay. So coming out of that last war, we are in a little bit of a negative monthly balance. However, I believe that this will improve, and it's a pretty small negative balance, and we've got enough naval surplus in our standing fund that we can tolerate this for quite a while. We've built up a pretty big surplus during that war. So I'm willing to let this run down quite a bit, right? Say down to, I don't know, 150, 200 million, something like that. So I'm willing to tolerate this for quite a while, possibly indefinitely, meaning until the next war occurs, when we're going to run a big surplus again. So I'm not going to get overly concerned about the monthly balance. And I think we've got a large enough naval fund that we can kind of, I don't know if not so much expand the fleet, but right size it, right? Kind of organize it a little bit better than I had before. So my ideas for the force structure of the French Navy, getting it set up for whatever the next war may be, is we have 10 battleships, or between what we have and what we're building, it will be 10 battleships. And my idea is 5 battleship-centered task forces, which I'm going to call battle groups. Wonderfully, wonderfully original and innovative, I know. So, 5 bat crews. Centered on 2 battleships apiece. Okay? 1 each for Toulon, Marseille, La Rochelle, and Brest. And that leaves us a 5th bat crew that can kind of swing to either side. Maybe have 2 at Brest, La Rochelle. I don't know. The 5th bat crew, I don't know where it'll be based. Unfortunately, Gibraltar is not quite big enough for that. I could probably shoehorn 2 battleships in there, but there would not be any room left over for any other escorts. So I'm thinking 2 battleships, 4 heavy cruisers, and 6 torpedo boats for each one of those bat crews. And in addition to that, separate light cruiser groups of 3 light cruisers apiece. Probably 1 or 2 in the East Med, 2 in the West Med, 2 in the North Atlantic / English Channel. Maybe have one of them at Le Havre. Or maybe 1 apiece in the East Med, West Med, North Atlantic, and English Channel, and then 2 additional cruiser groups at Gibraltar that can swing out into either the Med or the Atlantic. So 5 bat crews, 6 crew crews. We'll see how long I stick to that little naming convention. I might get tired of that pretty quick. And that results in an overall force structure of 10 battleships, 20 heavy cruisers, 18 light cruisers, and notionally 30 torpedo boats. However, these are like disposable little cannon fodder. I mean, pretty much every battle, even a really good one for us, you're going to lose a couple. So let's say 40 torpedo boats just to have a few extra spares. And we're actually not too far from that now. In order to get to that, I've got my battleships. I just need 4 more heavy cruisers, 6 more light cruisers, and a few more torpedo boats. I don't think that's a terrible... I don't think that's an unrealistic additional peacetime shipbuilding program. So we will increase our deficit a little more, but a lot of these ships are already building. Ships building cost more than ships in being. So as a lot of these complete, the ones we're building now, budget's going to come down and there will be money for more shipbuilding. And we're actually pretty close to completing a lot of these anyway. So that's one thought that I have for kind of getting the fleet built out and organized for the next war. And the other notion I have is I'm pretty happy with the cruiser designs as they are. I'm not feeling a compelling need to do any new designs or any refits to the heavy cruiser and light cruiser designs. With the heavy cruisers, I'm reluctant to mess with them, partially because they're supposed to be cost-conscious ships, right? The whole idea behind their design was to basically have a lot of low-cost tonnage to contribute to power projection, right? Those ships are already cutting corners. They don't have citadels. They don't have the best quality armor. Even for 1890, right? They're iron, what is it called? Iron, maybe just plain iron. They're not compound armor. They have the lowest possible caliber guns. Well, they're 6-inch base guns. They're a little bit bigger than that. They're 6.7s. But, we don't have 7 or 8-inch guns on those ships. And I don't want to refit them or design a new one that's going to cost more than what our cruisers our heavy cruisers are already giving us. And to that extent, they've done a magnificent job. Yeah, they're not the best possible ships, but they're very cost effective. And they've proven pretty effective in battle too. With the light cruisers, I've been pretty pleasantly surprised at how well they have worked out. And I think I made a comment in my previous campaign. I made the comment a couple of times that, wow, destroyers are just stronger now than they used to be. And I'm kind of feeling that way about the light cruisers as well. And I don't really think it's necessarily that destroyers per se, or light cruisers specifically, are necessarily stronger intrinsically. I think just the lighter caliber guns are stronger now than they used to be, which has really improved the gunfire performance of light cruisers and destroyers. But it's also, I'm kind of seeing the same things with the secondaries on the larger ships as well. So the light cruisers as they are doing fine, and I haven't quite run across any techs yet that make me think, ooh, it's time for a new light cruiser. So I'm leaving the cruisers alone. I've already messed with the torpedo boats, and the one battle that we've had with the newer design torpedo boats, I mean, they're still awful little ships. They just are, but at least I think I have them a little bit better set up for what I intend to use them for than I did at the start of the campaign. And that leaves battleships. Our battleships did have some involvement in the last war, and what we saw of them, I think, were, I was pretty happy with the designs. Their 11.9-inch guns are working out. But I'm interested in refitting the Normandy class. We've had a couple of these little techs that don't really stand out, but, things like armor weighs just a tiny bit less, things of that nature. So I wasn't quite able to get 12.9-inch guns on the Normandy class battleship. I'm interested to go back now and see if I can do that and then refit all the Normandies, upgun them to 12.9s. I want to see if I can get away with that now. So that's kind of the plan for this episode. Do a little shipbuilding, do a little battleship refit, and kind of get ships all reapportioned to the various ports along France's Atlantic and Mediterranean coasts. All right, here's our Normandy-class battleship design as it stands now, with 11.9 single-barrel turrets. And all I'm really looking to do here is, can I replace these with 12.9s and still come in underweight? When I first designed these ships, I wasn't quite able to do that. Let's see if we can now. Okay, let's get rid of the 11.9s. Let's go for 12s. Single barrel still. I'm pretty sure I don't want to go with the doubles yet. I want the Citadel to be as short as it can be. We'll try this right here. So far, so good, but can I bring him up to 12.9s? Can I lengthen the barrels to 20%? I can. Well, that looks pretty good. Heck, we're 300 tons under. I'm pretty pleasantly surprised by that. To the point where, what else can I do? I do have a little bit more forward offset this way. I think that can be easily taken care of. What happens if I just scooch this turret one notch aft? Scooch this turret. It doesn't really seem to affect her over-the-shoulder rear arc much at all. Oh. It doesn't like it. Oh, no. Yeah, that's fine. Well, can we get a little bit more main belt onto her? Yes. How about a little bit more main deck? Yes. Can I take care of that weight offset with just moving this funnel a tiny, tiny bit? I meant to go one more scooch there. Okay. Maybe just up the forward belt. Well, that was surprisingly easy. I think I'm pretty happy with the secondaries as they are. I would try to go for the 4.9s, except I think it would just mess. I think it would mess with this turret back here. The 3.9s don't seem, the aft main turret seems to rotate fine over the 3s, not over the 4s, if I remember correctly. I think this has accomplished what I wanted. There's a few tons there, and that's just a little bit more room for future refits as they come along. Which we'll need because things like rangefinders. I'm kind of expecting a rangefinder, the first coincidence rangefinder to come along at some point. Those will definitely be refit. That's going to add, things like that are going to add some weight. So leaving a few tons here is not bad. And for the moment, we put a little bit of armor. Oh, wait a minute. I should have gone for enhanced. Yeah, that added. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, all right. Let's bring the main belt back down a little bit, and shave a couple tenths off of the. Yeah. Okay. Okay, mission accomplished. Even though there wasn't much to that refit, upgunning the main armament, I would expect. It's kind of weird to predict exactly how long a refit will take. You know, when you first design a ship, it'll tell you the build time up here. It doesn't do the same thing for a refit. So sometimes they're surprisingly short, sometimes they're surprisingly long. Oh, I messed something else up. As long as we're doing a refit, we should probably work in. We do have crap. I forgot to get the reinforced bulkheads in. Do we have double bottoms yet? No. Yeah. Okay. Let's go back down to our armor where we were. That which was 12 and well, we still have a little bit of armor room. Let's go 2.6 and get this belt back up a little bit. Okay. Make sure I haven't forgotten anything else. Gun cotton just seems a little bit too incendiary to me. I'm not quite ready to make that jump. We do have a 38% flash fire chance. I'm not looking to increase that. Okay, done. Okay, so it's this 1893-2 design is what we want. This one I can... Please let me delete it. Yes, okay. All right, now the question is, how long is this refit gonna take? Test case. Normandy herself. $7 months. Well, the nation with whom we have the worst relations is Britain, and it's at 0. To some degree or other, we are either dead neutral or friends with everybody. Now, I would expect pretty soon here we're going to start ramping up some relations problems, some tensions with somebody. But even with that, I think it's going to take at least a year for us to get close to hostilities again. So I'm going to go ahead and bite the bullet, and I'm going to refit all of the battleships at once. Just get it out of the... Before we do that, what's real close? Let's see. We are currently at 85% tech budget. What is within a year? Triple expansion steam engine. Okay, a new battleship hull. And also more improvements to hull weight, to resistance, hull form. This is the kind of thing that, yeah, does those little weight savings things where you can do things with refits that aren't immediately obvious but help the ship out. But the main thing with this is going to be the new hull, which might actually be good enough to start thinking about double turrets with 12.9s. That goes beyond this class, though, I think. We got a new cruiser thing. We got a. Sometimes I see things like this and I'm not sure what to think of it. So this says, hey, you can build a cruiser up to 3,000 ton displacement. Well, I already built my existing cruisers to 3,000 ton displacement, so I'm not, sometimes I get text that it reads like, well, I already have that. I don't quite get it. Okay. Yeah, we do have coincidence rangefinder coming. That's going to be 12 months unless I prioritize it, which I typically do not do. I know, I see a lot of people on your YouTube campaigns that use these. I just don't. Double bottom coming in 2 months. Gun layout. 8-inch casemate guns. I'm not excited about that. Secondary turrets on light cruisers. That's not really jumping out at me for our existing light cruiser design. I see some things building here. Rangefinders will definitely need another refit a year from now. Hull strengthening is interesting for a new design coming up. But I'm not seeing anything here that makes me think I want to wait and try to work it into another refit, into basically another refinement of our existing refit. So I'm going to go ahead and refit all of the existing battleships. And there's a couple more that are going to have to be refit as they complete. Still had a couple of those class building. Okay, that takes care of that. And I need to build, or I want to build, 4 more heavy cruisers, 6 more light cruisers, and 7 more torpedo boats. 4, 6, and 7. So 4 Toulons. Crap. Oh no, that's right. I had done a refit to it's the Valdeck. Those are the ones we need to build. 4 Valdecks. 6 Mielis. And it's weird to build an odd number. So I'm going to build not 7, but 8 Sabres. Alright, well that's going to cost a pretty penny. Yeah, that puts us at minus 6.7 million per month. That's a little more substantial. I don't want this to go for too many months. On the other hand, I'm going to tolerate this for a while and see how the budget settles out once we get some of our other shipbuilding projects done, and as some of these remaining ships come in from at sea. Okay. So it's a peacetime period. I'm not going to click through every single month and show every single event and the tensions on a month by month change basis. So I'll check back in about 6 months or so and kind of show what's going on. I'll be back. Okay, it's July 1893. Not too much to report. The war between Britain and Germany and Austria-Hungary continues. However, it's got to be said, Austria-Hungary, probably understandably enough, given the geography, is pretty much letting Germany carry the load alone up here. All these clashes in this war are pretty much Germany-only shows, and it is showing. Germany's getting a little ground down, and Britain is pulling ahead in the victory points against her dual foes. Well, we're just watching from the sidelines on that. It is what it is. Britain is continuing, however, to lose the preponderance of transports in this war. I can only guess that maybe a lot of these German task forces at sea are perhaps in invade mode, or the British don't have enough task forces in protect mode. I don't know. But that's happening. Our relations are very slowly, gradually improving with Britain to the point where basically, at least relative to just dead center zero, we're buddies with everybody for the moment. So I don't, there's no tensions mounting between France and anybody. And for the time being, I think that suits us until we get the fleet sorted out, as I discussed before. One thing I did notice is apparently once you reach 200% on transport capacity, it doesn't let you improve anymore. I went several months there, and I'd bump it up some. I was trying to keep it at about 6 million minus, and I'd go to the next month, boop, right back down to zero. So I guess once you reach 0%, it's just now it still costs money to maintain that. Let me see if I can hit the zero again. Well, yeah, there we go. Well, once you hit the 200%, it's not going to let you spend more money than that. You're maxed out for GDP growth, I guess. I don't think that's new. It seems like I knew that once in the past and had simply forgotten it. So I don't think I discovered anything new there. It's just something I had forgotten from the game mechanics. So we're maxed out on transports, which means, at least in terms of anything that we can directly influence in the budget, I think we're maxed out on annual economic growth, which isn't that much. That's not a big number there. 1.2797%, which now all the countries that are at war, they're in the negatives, and that's because they're at war, right? They're spending so much more in their militaries and their navies that they've got negative economic growth at the moment, which is one reason why I think it's probably better to, in some sense, you want, or I say you, I don't know what you want, but I kind of think that I want that, the player wants some bursts of war because you get a huge naval budget increase, right? And so you're able to implement a lot of stuff. Now, you need that budget increase for repairs, too. And, of course, it costs a lot more money to have so many more ships on sea control and that sort of thing. But even with that, there's usually a big surplus going, and you can build up this naval budget, right? But overall, the country is hurting economically from the war. So I don't think... I would suspect that a strategy of just pursuing endless, relentless, as soon as the government forces the end of a war, you're looking for the next one immediately. I think in the long term that may or may not work out. I may try a campaign just to see. Maybe I'm being a little bit too cautious there. But I think alternating periods of relatively short wars, say a year to 2 years long, and you want some periods of peace in between those to grow the GDP. Now, I haven't played out a long campaign for decades, so I could be wrong about that. Maybe continuous war is the way to go if you possibly can. But the only other country at peace with everybody is Italy, and they both have a larger GDP and a larger GDP growth than we do, and I can't build the transports any more than I am, so I don't really know what else to do about it. And I think some of that is probably just, hey, that's legendary difficulty for you. They don't really make the tactical battles harder. They make the economy harder. And so I think that's mainly what I'm seeing there. Which is fine. I mean, we've got an active fleet of 75 ships. We have 14 ships building. I think that we're going to be able to maintain, not a lot of that's torpedo boats, right? But I think this is going to be a sustainable size fleet. Or at least up in that ballpark. And we do have quite a bit of naval funds surplus here at 334 million to spend down. So I'm not too worried about the negative, as I mentioned before. I don't know that I'm really interested in driving tech budget all the way to the max either. What would that do? 7 million. So if I ran this for a year at 7.5 million, that would basically cost 90 million, which would put us down at 240 million a year from now if nothing else changes. It's competitive enough. I'm going to go ahead and do that and see if we can't get a tech jump on some of our potential adversaries. Okay, that's kind of what's going on July 1893. Right, it's January 1894. The war between Britain on one hand and Germany, Austria, Hungary continues. Britain, just in terms of victory points, Britain is maintaining its somewhat modest lead. They're not really gaining ground, but they're not losing ground either compared to Germany and Austria. And I really should say, relative to Germany, I don't think Austria is really participating in that war, as I previously mentioned. I think they're kind of sitting on the sidelines, and this is mainly a bloodletting between Britain and Germany in the North Sea. That's where all the all the clashes that we're getting reports of, the ship repairs, the effects on things like unrest and naval prestige. Germany's pretty much going it alone against Britain. We can see that in the politics. All of the all the other naval powers, Italy, Germany, Austria-Hungary are pretty neutral on naval prestige. They seem to be doing okay on public opinion. Germany might be a little bit lower. The British, even though they're slightly ahead in their war and victory points, they are taking it in the shorts on naval prestige. And both the British and the German fleets have actually fallen lower in terms of active ships. Have actually fallen lower than the other naval powers. Italy, just based on ship count, has the largest fleet in Europe. However, they have gone the no capital ships route. They don't have any battleships. They've got a plethora of heavy and light cruisers and a lot of torpedo boats as well. Our fleet is comparable in size, a little bit smaller, but of course we have the 10 battleships and Italy does not. Austria-Hungary has got yet a still smaller fleet, but out of that 72 ships, they've got 17 battleships and quite a few heavy cruisers as well. They're a little light on the light cruisers and torpedo boats. But in terms of power projection, Austria-Hungary might actually have the strongest fleet at the moment. In terms of ship count, if we look at the naval prestige, you know, the image of what we project both at home and abroad, the French Navy has far more prestige than any other navy in Europe, and that is due to our ship's performance in the Anglo-French War. Let's hope that continues. One other thing worth mentioning here is we have started jumping out to a little bit of a tech lead, just a little bit. Of course, all you get is just these descriptive terms. We don't know numbers, but we are shown as advanced, whereas the other four powers are still at average. So we're starting to develop a little bit of a tech lead. Of course, our economy remains smaller than any of the other powers, not only in total size, but also in growth rate. Given that we're at peace, of course, the warring powers are experiencing negative growth because they're at war. But if and when that war ends, which doesn't show any sign of ending soon, you know, they're going to jump up to bigger growth numbers as well. But at least for the moment, we're doing what we can on the economic front. I already mentioned, you know, we're at 200%. That's about all I can do. Okay, so that's kind of the geopolitical naval affairs in Europe picture. As far as tech, I forgot to mention in July, we had already picked up, we do have the Battleship 2 hull available, and that would let us build a battleship up to 15,500 tons. That's a pretty big step up. And we've picked up a few other techs in which I am interested. Coincidence Rangefinder has come along. I'm very interested in refitting our existing battleships and cruisers to that tech, but I'm not going to do it quite yet. In research, we've got 4 months before we get to nickel steel armor, and we're also going to pick up another little hull weight and ship construction time buff at the same time. I'm going to wait for these to come along, and then I'm going to do a large-scale refit, definitely of the battleships and possibly of the cruisers as well. Don't know if I'm quite ready to go and build a new battleship. I feel like I've pretty much plussed up the, you know, organized the force structure to about what we can legitimately afford in peacetime. I don't know about that. I'm kind of at the point where if I build a couple more battleships, I need to decommission 2 older battleships, and I don't think that the Normandies and Solferinos are outmoded yet to the point where I need to seriously start considering that. On the other hand, we've got this tech lead. It won't be too long before we start feeling some pressure to actually transition that potential advantage into kinetic advantage by actually having ships with all that extra tech. We're doing that partially with the refits, but I guess I'm just saying I'm not quite ready to build that 15,000 ton battleship yet, which will probably be big enough for double 12.9 inch turrets. But it's going to come pretty soon, I think. And that is basically the, well, let's see. As far as the organization of the fleet, it's pretty much achieved what I talked about earlier. There are 5 battleship groups in the Navy. There is 1 each in each battleship group consists of 2 battleships, 4 heavy cruisers, and 6 escorting torpedo boats. And all the torpedo boats now are either newly built or upgraded to the new gun heavy design, or gun heavier than they were before design. The Carquois, Refit, and the Sabre class, which are identical. There is no difference between those two. So there's one of these groups at Brest, one at La Rochelle, one at Marseille, and I've got kind of the surplus torpedo boats at Marseille and Toulon, one at Toulon, and one at Nice. The surplus extra spare torpedo boats are at Marseille and Toulon. Then I've also got the separate light cruiser groups, the crew crews. We have one at Le Havre, one at La Rochelle. Okay, this one's for the English Channel, La Rochelle for the North Atlantic. Got a group at Tunis for the West Med, a group at Valletta for the East Med, and then 2 cruiser groups at Gibraltar that can flex into either theater. Now into July 1894. The Anglo-German War. I'm not giving Austria-Hungary the the benefit of including them in the name of that war, because they ain't doing nothing. Both of these powers up here continue to exhaust each other. Germany is caught up. The previous British lead in victory points has largely been erased. Germany has not surpassed them, but they're pretty even now. Both nations' navies have been whittled down. They're both at exactly 57 ships in commission. However, the vast majority of them are in the yards for battle repairs. 40 ships out of 57 for Britain, and 45 ships being repaired out of 57 for Germany. So only 17 ships and only 12 ships actually operational this month at sea for these nations. So they've been duking it out pretty intensely. Both nations are building a lot of ships as well, over 30 apiece. The war, however, is going Germany's way. Public opinion in Germany has increased. Naval prestige has increased. Whereas both of those categories continue to decline for the British Empire. Disliked public opinion and disliked naval prestige. The trend at the moment seems to be going in Germany's favor. But neither empire is emerging as a clear... I wouldn't bet on either one of these winning this war anytime real soon. Meanwhile, while the 2 largest naval powers in Europe exhaust themselves in the North Sea, our Navy has strengthened. As mentioned prior, had picked up the coincidence rangefinder technology, and also picked up nickel steel, the next major armor upgrade. And so, all ships in the French Navy, with the exception of the torpedo boats, I'm not messing with those anymore until I get a bigger hull, but all the battleships, all the cruisers, have undergone or are undergoing refit for coincidence rangefinders. The battleships and light cruisers have also gotten the nickel steel armor and reinforced bulkheads. So they've picked up some accuracy and some survivability upgrades. And those refits for the light cruisers and the battleships were actually very quick. Putting on a rangefinder and upgrading the quality of armor and reinforcing bulkheads only took a month and was quite cheap. One would think that upgrading the material of which a ship's entire armor scheme is composed, and then going through structurally and reinforcing a bunch of bulkheads, one would think that that would be a very lengthy and costly refit. Well, it turns out in UAD universe it isn't. Meanwhile, the heavy cruisers, I did not give them, they got the coincidence rangefinder, I did not give them the nickel steel armor quality because they're supposed to be cheaper ships. However, and I know this sounds contradictory, during an early refit in the campaign where I had to juggle around some ship designs because of an update, I had shortened and downsized the caliber of their armament a little bit, and I had to wait to bring those back up. So they had dropped to 6.7 caliber inch guns and 3.7 secondaries at 15% length. I lengthened the barrels back out to 20% and brought the calibers back up to 6.9 and 3.9 on all the heavy cruisers. Because that's what they were originally intended to be anyway. And those refits are much more costly and are taking longer. Not nearly as much as building a new ship, but I've mentioned a couple times, there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to the length of time it takes to refit ships. The pattern that I'm starting to see is, as long as I haven't messed with armament, the refits seem to be pretty quick and easy, even if the components sound like they should be extensive. As soon as I start messing with guns at all, yeah, that's when the refit cost and expense starts ramping up. So, the French Navy has gone through its modernization program. The 20 heavy cruisers have got about 2 months left before they get their improved guns. And at that point, it's going to be time to start doing a little saber rattling, I think, and try to get some of these ships out to sea, drive up some tensions. Who exactly with, I'm not sure yet. Long term, I'm always going to cast a covetous eye on these French ports here in Sardinia and possibly Sicily. I don't know if those are eligible to take over in a peace treaty. I'd like to pick a fight with Italy, but I'm also looking at, I think Austria-Hungary kind of needs to be taken down a peg with those 17 battleships they have. And frankly, they deserve a little bit of a scrap because they're leaving their buddies, the Germans, completely in the lurch in this war. The combined naval forces of Austria, Hungary, and Germany ought to be able to just wreck Britain at this point, right? If Austria-Hungary would surge some of those battleships up into the North Atlantic or the English Channel, I think England would be knocked out of this war. But they're not. They're sitting here in the Adriatic, doing whatever Austrians do in their social calendar, attending parties, grand balls, the opera. They need to fight somebody. One can make the same argument about Italy. They haven't fought anybody either. That at least Italy hasn't allied with anybody and said that they would help out in the war. In any case, who exactly I decide to pick a fight with and how the tensions go, that will have to remain for the next episode. We've gotten our Navy kind of up to snuff. It's basically the same ships we've had, but they've been upgraded a little bit. We're enjoying, we've kind of put to use our technical edge, and it's right, I'd like to get these ships back out at sea shooting at somebody, and I'm sure you would like it too. Hopefully that will happen in the next episode. If you like what we're doing with the channel, if you like the content, then leave a like, leave a comment, maybe even subscribe. If you're new to the series and the channel, would like to catch other episodes in this series that you may not have seen yet, I'm linking the playlist right here. At any rate, thank you very, very much for watching. I appreciate it.